everyone. How's it going? Matthew Bailey Media here, and welcome to another 2026 movie review. Now, this time is going to be on another Disney Pixar movie. I believe the last one I did was for Elio, if I'm not mistaken. But with this movie, this is the last original movie, as far as I'm aware, that's from Pixar, before we move on to like sequels for things like Toy Story 5, Incredibles 3, Coco 2, just to name a few that I know of. So, but with this movie, we are reviewing, of course, Hoppers. Yep, Hoppers is the latest Disney Pixar original movie that we've gotten. I think this marks the seventh original movie since 2020 a year, which includes the movies that came out in that year, which was Onward and Soul. But with Hoppers, this tells the story of a young girl named Mabel who loves nature. You know, she loves protecting animals, and especially animals that live near this lake that she visits with her grandma. And when a new mayor threatens to like build a highway over, which ruins the animal's home, she tries to find some way to be able to get a beaver, specifically to move back to this lake and say that we want to stay here and all that sort of stuff. And now she is I think she's confirmed to be 19 during the events of this movie, and she is in college. And one of her professors accidentally reveals to her about a technology that allows her to put your mind into the body of a robotic beaver, or any robotic animal to be precise, and she decides to put her mind into the robotic beaver and try to go out and find another beaver to save the lake that she grew up with. And that's sort of all I'm going to say without spoiling the movie. And I will say everything. I think the first half of the movie I think is great, and then even though the second half kind of gets dark, I mean, I'm not kidding. There's a character featured in this movie that not the mayor. Shockingly, there is another major villain in this film besides the mayor, but this other villain goes down a really dark path in this movie, and that's a first, I think, in my mind for Pixar. I think the only other like Pixar villain that's ever gone as dark as this character that's in Hoppers, I have to say, I think it was maybe Warner News and Randy Boggs from Monsters Inc. I think they're the only two villains I can think of from Pixar history who have gone down a really dark path with their characters. And I gotta, aside from this movie with this mysterious character, and I gotta say, but I will say Pixar, I think, really stepped up their game with this movie. I mean, when you look at some of the other movies that have come out from originals, starting with Onward in 2020, then you had Soul after that, then you had Luca, then you had Turning Red, and even though Lightyear came after that, I'm not counting that because that's not really an original per se, it's a spin-off. And then I think after Lightyear, you had Elemental, and then you had Inside Out 2 in 2024, then you had Elio in 2025, and now we get Hoppers. And I gotta say, out of all the originals though, not including Inside Out 2, I actually think this movie, Elio, Luca, Soul, and Onward, those are the 5 movies that I really enjoyed of the originals since 2020. And now Elemental and Turning Red, I thought those were lackluster in my mind. I think the other... Now, as to where I would rank this one between the 5 originals that I do have that I like, honestly, I think this one may actually top my number 1. I thought it was going to be Soul, or I think this and Soul are sort of like neck and neck with each other in my mind when it comes to like how I really enjoyed these original Pixar films. And now, yes, I know Toy Story 5 is coming out in a couple months. From as of this recording, and it's going back to sequels for Pixar films. And Disney Animation is also in a similar boat. I think when you look at some of the movies that they've done that's Disney original, I mean, we've hardly seen, I don't think we've seen as many for Disney Animation versus Pixar before we go back to sequels. But with this movie, I gotta say, this is, I think, Pixar at its peak, almost at its peak. I mean, like I said, this one and Soul, I think, are the two Pixar films that really stepped up their game with originals that tell amazing stories and stuff. I didn't think it was possible, but it was. So, anyways, let me give you my rating of the film. So, for my rating of Hoppers, like I said, definitely on par with something like Soul, which was the only other Disney Pixar original movie I really enjoyed. I'm gonna give this movie a 4 out of 5. Yep, 4 out of 5. Definitely one of my favorite films of the year so far. And in fact, I think I even love this more than Goat. So that's pretty interesting. So, anyways, that's all for now in this movie review. And as always, I will see all of you guys in the next video.